Hey guys, this is Vinny with Varun at Powerpunch Club. You guys know already that we're hosting events all across India this coming summer for the application season 2018. We're going to be holding workshops in a bunch of different cities across the country. The workshop's going to be a day long, 12 hours straight. You're going to come in, we're going to help you brand yourself. We're going to help you understand what type of universities to apply to, depending on your particular situation, your particular goals, and then we're going to help you put together 1 to 2, maybe 3 applications during that 12-hour session. You'll know everything that you need to know to apply to universities, put together a great application, and get an admission into a great university across the globe. Hello, everyone out there. I am Vinny, and with me here today is Varun. We are the Powerpunch Club. We're so glad that you guys have been following our podcast. We get all your comments. Thank you so much. It helps us keep delivering. Today's goal is statement of purpose, and I know we've talked about this multiple times, just that it's a complicated subject, and most of you have been asking us more detailed questions. So, Varun, you ready?
Yes, sir. Let's do this.
Okay. Question 1. What is a good process to follow in a statement of purpose? Let's give them more details, more tangibles, so that way they can follow this step-by-step process and have a good statement of purpose at the end of it.
The first step in this process is to come up with 5 adjectives that define your candidacy, that define you. So what we do is we tell the students to close their eyes and meditate over the 5 best adjectives that describe themselves. The statement of purpose should essentially point towards those 5 adjectives. So once they identify and once we choose these 5 adjectives that best represent the candidate, then we go deeper into the stories that would best portray each of these 5 adjectives. We're essentially looking for one story that can portray all of these 5 adjectives in the best possible way. So that's how you define your story. That's your step 1. Then the next step, you create an outline of your statement of purpose. So now you're taking your story and you're breaking it down into different paragraphs, into essentially an outline that shows how your essay is going to flow. 2 main things that we're looking for in an outline. One is the flow of the outline, the flow of the words that are in the outline. We want to make sure that when the person is reading this essay, in other words, it's called readability. We want to make sure that when anyone reads this essay, it comes off as really flowy, smooth. There are no harsh transitions.
I see. So it's kind of like you see those 2 movies. In one movie, the transitions are smooth. Your audience can understand what's going on in the story. And then sometimes there's other movies where they're all over the place. They're doing flashback, this, that, blah, blah, blah. And while they're cool, it's really tough for the audience to follow. So you're basically saying have good, smooth transitions that improve the readability of the essay.
The second one is that it has to be interesting. You have to be able to have the user, the reader, step into your shoes so that they feel and they can empathize with, they can be in your shoes and feel how you felt through your story. It also has to cause a sense of action.
Okay. So if we go with that movie analogy, you're basically saying that it's like a movie where you want to sit in your seat and watch the whole movie in one sitting. Like you can't let go because you want to know what happens next.
Yeah, and you want to also root for the character, right? So in a movie, there's always the main character, and the main character you always have to empathize with the character, right? Only then that's when you want the character to win the game in the movie, right? So that's how you want them to feel as well.
Gosh, you're so right. It's kind of like Breaking Bad. The guy is such a bad character. He's killing people. He's cooking meth in his lab, and he's making all these people drug addicts. But yet, the story is written in such a way that you empathize with the character so much that even though this guy is so bad and such a crook. At the end of it, we all are like, oh, please don't get caught.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Okay, I love it. This is like the Breaking Bad analogy. Okay, perfect. So I understand the outline needs to have two things, readability and has to pique the interest of the reader. Okay, what's next?
So step 3 is delivery. And what I mean by that is we're looking at the tone, as in we want to make sure that you don't come off as too academic. Your words are not too, whatever your branch of field is, you don't want to sound too technical. You don't want to put in these really, really big words in there either. Your sentences have to be short, succinct. You don't want it to be too windy, long sentences. You want to make sure the language is positive, it's constructive. You sound confident, but also not overconfident. You want to make sure that's the right amount of confidence. So there's always a fine line between that. Part of delivery is also the voice. As in, you want to make sure you always portray an active voice and not a passive voice. You want to be hands-on person, not someone in the spectators. Your language is always show that you are doing the action.
Right, correct. In fact, I was reading an article the other day, and it said the best qualities of the way leaders speak and write and communicate is an active voice versus a passive voice. And most readers know that. If most of our audience probably know that. If they don't, do a quick Google search about active versus passive voice. But what you're doing is you're more direct in an active voice. You get straight to the point so that the reader understands what you're talking about instead of reading the whole sentence and then understanding at the very end, because it just kills the readability and it just kills the flow of your statement of purpose.
Right. And then the step 4 is the grammar. So part of the grammar is the vocabulary, the words that you use. You want to keep it simple. You want to keep it easy to understand, nothing too technical, because you have to remember the admission committee, part of them they're not part of your degree. So they don't really understand specifics. And even if it's a professor looking at a statement of purpose, it's not someone who knows everything about your specific area.
Yeah, and to that point, that same article talked about that the best ability leaders have is to explain complicated things in easy words. So the admission committee is looking for that. Lots of people use these technical industrial jargon only to hide the fact that they can't break down something in easy words. Also, not just technical and industrial jargon, but lots of students think of putting in all those GRE words that they just learned to use in their essay. That's also not good. Just because you have all these new vocabulary in your treasure chest doesn't mean you should use it. Always use words that completely fit the sentence. Always go for an easier word versus a tougher word, because what happens is when your reader is going through your essay, the tougher words make them think more. And then the more they think about the word, the more they forget the character in the plot. And you want them to be focused on the character, the central figure in the story, which is you.
And step 5 is measure. So remember how in step 1 we came up with 5 different adjectives that portrays this particular candidate. So step 5 is to go back, make sure that the statement of purpose reflects those 5 adjectives. So here what we do is we step back from this essay, we let the candidate take the essay, read it over themselves, or hand it over to family members, to friends, to anyone who can help them out with this step. Essentially what they're doing is they're reading the statement of purpose and they're summarizing 5 adjectives essentially that they thought was portrayed in this statement.
So Varun, what you're saying is that they just take the essay and give it to a friend and ask them one question. If you had to describe this candidate with 5 adjectives, what would those 5 adjectives be? And then you're saying if those 5 adjectives are different from the ones that the person identified, or they're not as clear, then that means there's something lacking in the essay and they have to go back and change it a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay. So in one way, you're basically saying test it on 10 people before you give it to the admission committee.
They definitely need to test it out and gauge what other people are, how other people are responding to the test.
Right. For all you engineers out there, consider this step as like a beta test, where before you do the real launch, you're just sending it out there, seeing how people like it, and then incorporating that into your essay. But another point that you bring out, Varun, is this is a great point. Is at the end of the day, you're not even focused on the story. You're focused on those 5 adjectives, which is the underlying message that you're portraying through the story. The story is not what you should be focused on. At the end of the day, you're focused on the message that underlines that story. So if you go back to that Breaking Bad example, what are the 5 adjectives that you would use to describe Walter? Don't describe me what the whole Breaking Bad story is about. What are those 5 adjectives after listening to the whole story? Do you think about that character? And that's what the focus of the whole story should be on.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. That's exactly how we do it too.
Awesome. So number 1, identify your story based on the 5 adjectives that you want to portray yourself as. Number 2, put together an outline that's good flow, captures readability and interest of the user. Number 3 was focus on the tone and the voice of your writing. And number 4 was the grammar, choice of vocabulary. And then number 5 was the beta test, or where you go and ask people what adjectives could you describe this candidate as, and see if those match with step 1. Thanks, Varun. I appreciate you breaking this down for us. I think that's it for today's podcast. We'll see you guys later. Thank you.